Another cognitive view of motivation is the self-efficacy theory. So self-efficacy is this belief about how effective we can accomplish a task. So self-efficacy and academic success has been found to be positively correlated. That when students believe that they lack the ability to succeed, they may superficially attempt an assignment, or they may avoid it altogether, maybe avoid class altogether, or maybe they give up very quickly. They're not committed to it. So how do we get students to believe they can succeed? We need to help them understand that their beliefs can change their behavior. When they believe that they cannot succeed, they will likely not succeed because they might not give it the amount of effort and energy that they need, or they might avoid it, and so on. So we need to help students understand that the beliefs can change behavior. When students are motivated to engage in a task, they are motivated to engage in a task when they believe they can accomplish the task. So in this article called Improving Self-Efficacy and Motivation, What to Do and What to Say, the research found that we can improve motivation by improving self-efficacy. And there are 3 different sources of self-efficacy: enactive mastery, vicarious experiences, and verbal persuasion. I'm going to explain each of those. So self-efficacy, that enactive mastery, is all about picking the right task, okay? So we need to balance the challenge. When you are creating an assignment, you need to pick an assignment or a task that brings about success while also challenging the student. We need moderately challenging tasks, not too easy so that they get bored, but not too hard where we set them up for failure. So when students master a task that is challenging but not too challenging, it can increase their self-efficacy. So you can use scaffolding in this as well. So start off with a task, and when a student accomplishes that, increase the difficulty of the task. Continue to increase the difficulty of the task so that you're working up to a more difficult assignment. So success, when a student is successful in a task, it increases their self-efficacy. So you want to provide opportunities for success. All right, how can we increase self-efficacy? We can teach students skills. So vicarious experiences increase self-efficacy. So as instructors, we want to model, we want to guide, we want to demonstrate, we want to teach these new behaviors that will help them to be more successful. So Tuckman reviewed a research study that they did. It offered, in the experiment, half of the students, college students, were offered this strategy training. They were taught these cognitive and metacognitive strategies or study skills. And what they ended up finding is that the students that were taught these skills ended up earning a higher GPA. So when we teach skills, we help students to be able to be more successful. We increase their self-efficacy and their belief in themselves, and they are more motivated to engage in other tasks, more motivated to learn. All right, we can also increase self-efficacy by changing the student's thinking. So through verbal persuasion. So verbal persuasion aimed at changing dysfunctional cognitions or dysfunctional thinking can increase self-efficacy. So success attributions refer to this belief that the cause of success, is it through hard work, or is it through ability? So this belief in success, it can affect future behavior. So we want to stress functional attributions. So as an instructor, we want to stress functional attributions. We want to encourage students to believe that success is possible, that success comes from effort and strategy. It's not about ability. So we want to stress success. We want to reinforce students. We want to provide encouragement You can do this. You got this. In the past, you were able to accomplish this in this task. So I know that you can do this. You got this. So you want to reinforce effort. And you want to provide task or strategy specific feedback that will allow students to be able to make changes, to be able to improve, to be more likely to succeed. We also want to challenge dysfunctional attributions, such as the belief that success is impossible because they lack ability. So when students believe that they lack ability and that success is impossible, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we want to stress that failure is due to inadequate effort or incorrect application of a strategy. Those are things that can change, that are easier to change than ability. So we want to provide feedback that will allow students to change their effort or to change their strategy. Because failure is not due to permanent limitation. If you put the effort into it, if you try a different strategy, perhaps you'll be more successful. So we want to change the thinking. All right, so let's move on to humanistic views of motivation. And humanistic views look at and have this belief that humans are innately motivated to achieve their highest potential. This is within them. So two different humanistic theories are Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the self-determination theory. So Maslow's hierarchy of need says that it asserts that we are motivated by these different needs, that we have this ultimate need to be able to self-actualize. But before we can self-actualize, before we can be the best that we could ever be, we have to satisfy these other needs, these physiological needs, safety needs, and such. So how does this apply to the classroom? Well, students cannot self-actualize. Students cannot be the best that they can be. They cannot fully engage in learning and enjoy an activity if, say, they are hungry, or they have a headache, or they don't feel that it is a safe or secure environment. In the class that I was referring to at the beginning of the PowerPoint, I had mentioned that I have some students that seem unmotivated. Well, one day I had a student that was laying on their desk and seemed completely uninterested, and I perceived that as being rude and disrespectful. When I went over to talk to the student, I found out that he actually had a headache, and I let him leave to go back to his car to be able to get some Tylenol. And within 15 minutes, he was back and he was involved in the class. So if I hadn't considered those physiological needs that were getting in the way of him being able to learn, I could have had really a rough relationship with him from there on out, because I had considered his putting his head down a sign of disrespect rather than something physiologically wrong with him. So the self-determination theory is another humanistic approach, and it says that we are motivated by our need for autonomy, for competence, and for relatedness. So research shows that students are engaged in learning when the subject or activity is closely aligned with their interests and their values. Students are engaged in learning to be able to test and challenge one's ability, so testing their competence. Students get engaged in learning to establish a close, secure relationship with others, to satisfy their need for relatedness. So let's look at autonomy. So autonomy in this theory, the self-determination theory, refers to an inner endorsement of one's actions. So believing in and owning one's actions. So Ryan and DC offer this model for the different types of motivation, from least autonomous or most controlled to most autonomous. So when a student engages in a behavior or engages in an activity to get a reward or to avoid a punishment, for a grade, let's say, there's really no autonomy in that, and they're not doing the assignment because they want to. They're being regulated by an external factor, the instructor who's threatening perhaps a failing grade. Now, introjected regulation, there's a little bit more autonomy there. So the student is giving themselves rewards and punishment. So they're doing this activity not because somebody said so much, but because they're carrying out other people's rules and commands inside of their head. So it's not really their idea, but they're not just doing it for the rewards and punishments. Then you have identified regulation, where the person believes in the importance of an activity, but the idea came from outside themselves. So they're owning the activity a little bit more because they actually believe in the importance. It's not just somebody else saying it's important. They believe in it. So it's identified regulation, a little bit more autonomy there. And then the most autonomous is integrated regulation. So this is full autonomy. They believe in the importance of the activity, as well as they create the plan. They create the activity. They fully own it. There's a lot of autonomy here. So the more autonomous an activity is, the more motivated a student is to get involved. So students are more motivated if allowed autonomy. So we need to encourage self-determination by explaining why to buy into the task, why to buy into the lesson, why to care about the concept, why to get involved, as well as we can encourage motivation by giving choices for how the student can carry out the task. So when we say to the student, do this assignment because I will be grading it, the student is doing the assignment to be rewarded or to avoid punishment, to avoid the F. So the student is being externally regulated. There's no autonomy there. They're going to lack motivation to get involved in the assignment. Now, if you say instead, let's explore why this topic is important, let's set objectives, and let's decide how to meet them, there's a lot more autonomy there. And students will get more involved according to the self-determination theory. So this is identified regulation when the student buys into the topic, why it's important, and integrated regulation when they can decide what activities to engage in. So you're going to want to explain the value of a task as well as give them some choice. So greater autonomy means that the student feels more ownership. They have this greater internalization of the lesson and they're more motivated to engage in it. They're going to do the activity when you give them more choice and when they understand the value of the activity because they want to, because maybe the activity allows them to be creative because they're interested in it. They get the value. And so what research support is there for this need for autonomy and competence? There's all sorts of support. So we have Reeves and Jang. Their research looked at autonomy supporting behaviors and found that instructors that use these different behaviors have a positive correlation with autonomy. In the study, they found that instructors that use controlling instructional behavior, it is negatively correlated with autonomy and motivation. So recommendations, we need to increase the autonomy supporting behaviors, like asking what the student wants, allowing students time to work in their own way, offering encouragement, praise, providing rationales. So we need to increase those type of behaviors and decrease the controlling behaviors, the oughts and the should statements, providing strict deadlines and threatening failing grades. So we need to decrease the controlling type behaviors, increase the autonomy supporting behaviors, and students will be more motivated. So we need to provide choice. Ways we can do that is allow students to pick their lab partner, something as simple as that. Picking from alternate assignments or contract learning where students come up with a contract for how they're going to meet the objectives of the course. So other research support is that when students are attending college to fulfill intrinsic needs for autonomy and competence, they end up having higher GPAs as well as higher intentions to persist. So that offers support for this whole idea of autonomy and competence. So different recommendations that teachers should